You're listening to Never Go Against the Family, a podcast by the University of Northern Iowa Family Business Center. In this episode, Dan interviews Evan Reiman, a married-in family member of Krause Group and its subsidiaries, Come & Go and Krause Plus. Evan shares the process he went through to join the business and how he's truly seen how he adds value and perspective. Keep listening to hear more about Evan and his positive experiences working as a married-in in the family business.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Never Go Against the Family podcast. Here I am today, joined by Evan Reiman, who is with the Krause family business. You might know them better as Come & Go. I will let Evan talk a little bit more about that, but I just first want to thank everybody for joining, for listening. And if you've got ideas for topics or subject matter or interviewees you'd like to see us cover with this podcast, please let me know. Appreciate having you on, Evan. Thank you so much for taking a little time here as we are getting close to the holidays. Hopefully you've wrapped up some of your Christmas shopping, and maybe you could talk to us a little bit about where you fit into the generations of your family business and how and where you're at generationally, what kinds of work you do there, and how quickly they want to get rid of you, because I understand you're a married-in, so you're kind of always working on that, I hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Dan. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, like Dan said, Evan Reiman. I am a married-in fourth generation Krause family member.
Wow.
Married my wife. I have been with the Krause Group businesses for almost 4 years now. Started with Come & Go, did the real estate store development side. So I was on the team that was in charge of finding store locations, mainly on the real estate acquisition side of things. Did that for about almost 3 years, and then just earlier this year moved over to the non-Come & Go real estate division called Krause Plus. So Krause Group is the parent company, and Come & Go would be one of those businesses underneath that, and Krause Plus would be another one as well. So.
Okay. So can you give us like maybe just a 30-second history on, because I think it's a really cool story on how you guys came to be as the business you are today. I know it didn't start out looking like that, of course.
Yeah. So my wife's great grandfather and grandfather started now known as Come & Go, but it was Hampton Oil Company in 1959. So obviously started in Hampton, Iowa. They started, and Bill Krause, probably one of the most well-known individuals in the state of Iowa, led the business till about 2004. In 2004, my wife's father started as CEO. So he had been running it until about 2020. And in 2020, Tanner Krause, my brother-in-law, took the reins as CEO of Come & Go. Kyle still is involved with the business. He's the CEO of Krause Group, so he oversees all of our businesses, whereas Tanner is just leading the Come & Go side of things.
So, like for your wife's great grandfather and grandfather, they had this small local oil sales company, whatever, I'm thinking of in my mind, a truck and maybe a storefront somewhere. But at some point they started selling gas, and then they started thinking, hey, let's sell gas in a neighboring town. I mean, how did they get to that kind of
and it really started to I think the most I wasn't around. I never got to meet Bill, actually. He passed away about 10 years ago now. But what I've heard is he was really kind of the pioneer of the convenience aspect. I think everybody likes to say gas station. We are, as a family and just as a company, we like to, a convenience store. We offer more than just, gasoline. We also, offer fresh food inside, and all sorts of different products. So Bill was kind of really the pioneer of the convenience aspect of it.
Okay.
Very early on, it was milk and eggs and bread, the staples.
Sure. Yeah.
And that grew and grew over time. But yeah, they were slow and steady for a long time. And then Bill started to purchase other kind of not well run stores across kind of the Midwest area.
Sure.
And that's really when we started to grow very, very rapidly. So.
Okay. So he was kind of a pioneer in this whole C-store concept of how things are whatever delivered that way. That's really cool. Okay. I feel like, every founder has a story type of thing, and
Yep.
they're usually
Yep.
very interesting. So that's cool to hear. So now you've been involved with the business as a married in, a value add, as they like to say, right?
Yep.
For a
Yep.
few years as an employee. I mean, how did you make the switch from working not in the family business to working in the
Mm,
family business? And maybe advice you'd give others that are looking at that from the kind of shoes that you wear there as far as the
yep.
married in aspect.
Yeah. So it was a very long process. Just I think emotionally, and just a lot of conversation with my wife about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably well known to most that listen to this podcast that working in the family business in and of itself is risk.
Mm-hmm.
You expose yourself to a lot that probably won't happen if you work for another company that is not your family.
Right.
So there was a lot of pause on do I want to do this? Does my wife want me to do this? My
Sure.
wife does not work in the business, so it was a little bit easier for us to decide. Well, if one of the two is working there, that's probably good. So
Yep.
I think for me, being the married in was kind of it sealed the deal. I think at the time, I always considered myself, oh, the married in, the nuisance, here he comes. But as I've been with the business longer and have met a lot of our associates and tried to add the most value to the enterprise, I've noticed that married ins have a very unique position and unique perspective on um, pretty much everything.
Yep.
I like to come into, no matter if it's a family related, family business related matter or just working in the business, I'm able to detach a lot of emotion, I would say, from a lot of conversations. My wife and all of her siblings, and then all the other other family members, they have
Yeah.
28 to
Right.
however old they are,
Right.
years either working in the business or being a family. Whereas me, I can take a more global approach to it. I can look at it from how I was raised,
Yep.
how I view the world. My sister-in-law is very similar, and she's able to, her and I had very similar upbringings. Working family, taught us, hard work, and we're very
Yep.
generous with giving us a great education. Um, so I've really definitely I buy into the value add now than I used
I
to.
That's a
I would
great
hear that, I'm
point.
like, yeah, right. They're just making me feel good, but it's really opened my eyes, and it's taken me a while to kind of figure my place and when is it appropriate time for
Sure.
me to speak up. What are
Mm-hmm.
subject areas maybe that I should be a bystander for a while and collect more information and then speak. But as as my wife and I have grown in our marriage and just grown as a couple, with that comes growing with her family, and
Yep.
I've I've definitely found my place in a lot of those conversations.
I think that's a great point. I mean, I appreciate you making it. I'm thinking now about how, obviously family has emotional uh, ties as part of their decision making process. Some of those emotional ties that they have by being around them so much. And
Yep.
then when you
Hmm.
approach it with more of an outsider lens, you can still kind of commingle the two things in your own mind as you're potentially thinking through what your advice or your opinion is on something, or your question, or something we should be thinking about type of thing, is allowed to happen. That's really cool. I appreciate that, Evan. And I appreciate you also saying, you started that off by saying, you talked with your wife. It sounds to me like in a very proactive, very detailed, lengthy way over the course of time about, is this a pool I want to jump into type of thing, or that we want me to jump into, or whatever it
Yeah,
looks
it
like,
was
right?
the key word there is we. And my professional background prior to that was I was actually selling airplanes for a company. A lot of my professional career was in the aviation industry,
Oh, okay.
and so for me to jump one, not only in the industry I was in, but also to add the family element to it was a bit of leap of faith.
Sure.
But almost 4 years down here, it has served me well, and definitely a decision I would do again.
All right, great. I mean, a couple of the tiebacks I'm hearing for advice, one is certainly, um, think on it, talk on it, not just in your own head, but with your spouse, right? And think
Mhm.
about ramifications, think about opportunities, think about all the things that you talk through. But the point is to be in communication, and not just leap into something. And another thing that I think I heard you say was to kind of feel things out, to know maybe when it's my time to speak type of thing, and to know that that might not be right off the get-go, but I might need to feel things out around here first, right, and experience some things, and see how they do things type of deal. That's great advice too. So now, you're 4 years into your career there, with the family company. Are there thoughts that you have about what you would other things you might suggest to others that are, maybe just in general about being in a family business, things that you want to have worked well for you guys to practice or develop, or whatnot? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, I guess I'll split this into two. I'll do more of like a family council advice, if you want to call it that, and then I'll do
Okay.
another kind of bucket of like working in the family business.
Yeah, that's
For
great.
like the sitting in a room, and I'm sure all of your listeners are going to be various size businesses here. But just
Hmm.
sitting in a room with family members talking only about business, I guess you could classify that as the family council.
Yep.
Um, I would say, especially the advice to the married ins, I it, it's really up to them if they want to be an active part through these conversations. I obviously, along with my wife, both agree that I see myself and she views me, and I think other family members do as well, viewed me as a value add.
Right.
But if you don't want to be an active part, whether it's working in the business or constantly involved with family council decisions, everybody has their own place, and if your place is not part of that's perfectly fine. And we have family members that are really engaged, and then we have other family members that aren't quite as engaged, but that's fine.
Right.
And I think everybody recognizes that. Our family office recognizes that. And everybody's different. Everybody has different goals in life, and so I mean, whether you're married in or your blood, um, don't feel like you have to be involved with everything. I think I sometimes people get so caught up in I have to do this.
Right.
Just take a step back and obviously do what's best for your family, but also do what's best for yourself too.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, we look
um,
at that as if we're not involved, then we must be lazy or something, or we don't
yep,
care.
yep,
And
nope,
the truth is far from that most of the time, right? It's respect
yep,
boundaries, or I just, I'm going to
yep,
play this role. That's a great point. I think,
yeah. It
for
it
people,
yeah, and I think it's some myself included, really. I feel if I'm idle or I'm not like communicating, contributing to a conversation, I'm like, oh my god, something must be wrong. But as I've gotten older and just been in the family more, sometimes being the fly on the wall and just observing has more value than to me actively speaking.
Yep.
And obviously, as I've been the fly on the wall for many years, I think it's really paid dividends here as I've gotten older. And
Sure.
now I'm able to, like I said earlier, just collectively view things, and then really think about how I'm going to respond to something versus just, whether it's blurting something out or, making a
Sure.
rash decision.
Yep.
So, tying back, I would just say, do what's best for you and your family, and don't. I'm sure we all feel pressure to do it. I think it's every
Mm-hmm.
parent's dream in a family business for their kids to come work for them. So it's not.
Right.
I'm not the. My wife and I are not the only ones that experience this. With the working in the business, um, especially obviously Reiman is not Krause. Um, so me being in the business, and especially the size of our business, it I approached things and I communicated up front that I wanted it to be treated like anybody else would. So if we were going to hire an associate, I want to go through the hiring process just like everybody else. I want the compensation levels like everybody, just view me as Evan. Don't view me as a
Yep.
family member for a second. So
Yep.
I kind of went through that. And I really built a really strong rapport with my team at the time. And, slowly but surely people start finding out who you are. But
Sure.
what I was able to do very successfully is people viewed me as being Evan. People didn't view me as being Evan the family member, and that's really helped in people respect me for just me and my personality. And then, oh, you're also a family member. And that has, I'm able to command a room a little bit better. It's
Yep.
not like, oh, here comes Evan. He's gonna,
Sure.
he's either say something that we have to say yes to, or, but no, people feel comfortable to say no around me. People, we all have our own opinions. And I always tell people, challenge my opinion. If you don't think it's the right thing, talk to me about it.
Yep.
And vice versa, so it has helped me, and just with my career development and leading people. People view me as, just Evan, more of a leader. And then, I guess you could say the cherry on top is a family member.
Sure.
And people that are around me don't view that as a negative. And I would say a lot of my family members too. They've, my brother-in-law is also, Tanner's in the business. My other brother-in-law, Oliver, is also in the business. And I think we've all kind of taken similar approaches to, really people knowing us as people and not just with the family attached to it. So
That's a great point.
easier said than done with a different last name. But
Sure.
I guess you could, if you want to call that a perk of being married in, I guess that would be a perk there.
Well, I like the takeaway I have from that of what you're saying is right off the get-go, you're having these conversations with people on your team or your direct supervisors and others that you're going to be working with that, I want this is a meritocracy and it has
Yep.
nothing to do with I want to make sure I'm treated like anyone else is treated, paid like anyone else is paid, and professional development, whatever it might be, comes to me the
Yep.
same way it would to anyone else. I'm sure that bought a ton of credibility for you as you started out
Yeah.
there. um
Yeah. That was,
what's
that was really important for me.
okay, sweet.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this
And it over time, maybe you don't see the benefits right off the bat. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, man, maybe I'm doing the overkill. I'd be kidding to myself. There are perks of being a family member. So I'm not, I don't want to
Sure.
say like, I try to, hunker down and not be seen by anybody. But just the having people buy into me and people really respect, and as you say, gain credibility early on, over time that'll compound, and then
Yeah.
hopefully as I lead bigger, larger teams over time,
Yep.
that will really really help.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think one benefit too, maybe as a married in, is you kind of have oftentimes this flip switch type of an entry into the company, whereas if you were
Yep.
a true blood family member, you're there as a 12-year-old kid pushing a broom or
Yep.
delivering whatever you're
Yep.
doing, right? And then it's sort of like there isn't just this easy simple flip of a switch where you become an employee type of thing, where for yourself you kind of have that ability to then be proactive with what you're doing at that time, and you're not a 12-year-old kid when you're doing it, so to
Nope.
do some of these more proactive things about talking to people about who I am and how I want to be treated and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, all of my wife's siblings, including my wife, they worked in some business, starting at a really young age,
Yeah,
whatever the legal age is for a family
sure.
business. Um, and my wife, there was a little coffee shop that they owned, so she worked in that at a very young age. But most of her brothers all worked, they were doing sweeping floors at Come and Goes. So
Yeah, yeah, right.
they all started. Pretty young. But to Kyle's credit, teaching hard work, and hey,
Oh
you
yeah.
don't get everything without putting in a little sweat equity. So
Absolutely. No, that's a great point too. I mean, a great best practice for other families, which I think you shared a lot of good ones here with us today, Evan. I greatly appreciate your time doing this, taking the time to do this and kind of share your perspective as someone who's married in. I think sometimes at our center and just with programming in general, sometimes you forget about the fact that there are some differences, albeit maybe sometimes subtle, but there are differences between those who are directly on the family tree and those who are kind of attached into the family tree and that kind of a thing. And so
yep,
appreciate you sharing your perspective, Evan. It's always great to hear from you. And we wish you all the best there with your businesses and everything that you've got going on. So thanks again for taking the time to be with us. I'm with Evan Reiman, who's with the Krause family businesses with Krause Plus, and is in charge of new real estate development there. So thank you so much, Evan.
awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Never Go Against the Family, a podcast produced by the University of Northern Iowa Family Business Center. You can find more information about the center, membership, and upcoming events at unifamilybusinesscenter.com. As Vito Corleone advises, never go against the family.